the Evolution Security Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Brian here with Eric and Aaron. How you guys doing?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. It's great to talk to you guys as always.
Yep. Glad to be here. Fun time hanging out with you guys. Yeah, we were just talking beforehand, and we're blessed to get to hang out like this.
Oh, absolutely. And we were having a kind of interesting discussion, a little off camera, if you wouldn't say, about some of the current events, but stick around after the interview because, of course, we'll do our accountability like normal, but we're going to have a brief discussion about some of the events of the past week, and this is going to publish pretty quick, so hopefully it's relevant. But, yeah, things are a little off-kilter in our country at the moment, and we're hoping it doesn't get much worse, but we're going to talk a little bit about it after our interview with Professor Lachlan Giles. Pretty much a jiu-jitsu badass, wouldn't you say, Eric?
Oh, yeah. He is one of the biggest up-and-coming superstars in jiu-jitsu. I mean, let's just face the fact that ADCC or Abu Dhabi is the pinnacle of no-gi jiu-jitsu or no-gi submission grappling. And he came up, and now he's been winning international competitions. But as far as the limelight goes, he came up and won third or a bronze medal in the absolute division. I think he was fighting at maybe around 170, I believe it is. Lachlan, if I got that wrong, I apologize. But I mean, he's beating heavyweight world champions, guys that just won their division that day, if memory serves. So Lachlan is an amazing jiu-jitsu athlete. And what an amazing person. I mean, his humility and his support of us, we'll never forget that. So we're gonna do our best to support him whenever we can, like possibly bringing him into the States or going over there to Australia on vacation and going and training with him.
That'd be awesome.
I've always wanted to go to Australia, and now I have more reason to go. I have somewhere to go when I get there.
Well, heck, man.
An EvoSec business trip, guys?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Man, that sounds great. I'm getting pumped about that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Well, let's get some business out of the way. I got pretty exciting stuff to talk about here. One of our sponsors, and I like to call them partners, like Eric talked about. We're not getting anything out of this, man. We do this because they help us out, but we're definitely not going to the bank here. But one of our partners, Origin Maine, and you can find them at originmaine.com, ORIGINMAINE.com. They make just amazing products, and they make products that are made here in the U.S. One of the reasons that we partnered with them is because they make rash guards, gis, grappling apparel, other durable goods, supplements. Of course, they carry the Jocko label brands, but we all personally wear their rash guards, and we are going to give away one of the 1776 rash guards this week on the show. It is a size large, and due to the way ordering is working right now and some supply chain stuff, we're not really going to be able to size it to you. So it is a free rash guard, and if there's an opportunity to make it different, if it won't work for you, we'll try. But we're also going to include some Origin goodies in there. You're going to probably wind up with some Molk samples, and maybe we'll see what else goes in there. But you're going to get a little Origin care kit. So
awesome.
The way you get that is be a subscriber to our email list, and all you got to do is visit the website. There's a subscribe button there. You'll probably get a pop up if you don't have them like super locked down. You'll actually get a pop up, and just we don't contact more than once a month, and you obviously can withdraw at any time if you want to, but that is how you would enter to win this. And if you are already a subscriber, you are entered in this drawing already, so no need to re-enter, and I don't think it'll let you anyway. But we are going to give that away probably on the next show. We may let that marinate a little bit longer, but we're gonna hold it out probably a week to 10 days before we determine who's gonna get that. But that is our current promotion, and I'm stoked about it because I love their stuff and I use their products daily. I noticed they just I don't know how new it is, but they've actually got a D3 supplement now as well. I'm gonna start taking that instead of the ones I've been taking. And not that, I mean, D3 is a huge thing, especially in the wintertime, and especially if you live in a climate where you don't get a ton of sun. But their product is definitely an excellent one to take, and it's not, I don't feel it's overpriced either. A lot of these supplements, really get expensive, and I feel like they're keeping the price point in the spot where an average guy training or an average guy doing jiu-jitsu can still afford it. So I think it's an awesome thing. But originmain.com, and of course EvoSec at checkout gets you 10% off if you want to buy anything direct from them. You can start right out with a discount from day one. So that's all for me. What do you got, Eric?
Well, and just to add, Brian, it'll be EvoSec 10.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
EvoSec 10 on Origin, yes.
No big deal.
Only if you want 10% off.
All I'll say about Origin is, I love their products, but man, I love their jiu-jitsu gis. That's what got me started on Origin many years ago. So I know that Aaron also has an Axiom. My Axiom is one of my prized possessions, along with my
it's awesome,
along with my Jocko gi as well, my Def gi. But anyway, moving on, we also, again, Tenacor has been with us from the very get-go. Jeff Mao, if you guys hadn't heard that episode, go back to that episode. An amazing person, a hardcore guy, serious about training, serious about making people more capable. And so please go to their website at tenacor.com. That's TENICOR.com. And you can also use EvoSec at checkout for 10% off of any of their products. Check out the Velo 4. All three of the EvoSec crew use that holster daily. And I mean, I just dry fire with mine just moments ago. And it's an amazing holster. They have a lot more on there as well, so go check them out.
Excellent products from both those companies, man. I really enjoy them, and I use products from both of those companies daily, and if I did not, I would not have them here on the show. So that's what that means to us. So don't forget to visit evosec.org, EVOSEC.org. Give us the email address, and you will be entered to win that Origin goodie pack. So without further ado, I believe we're going to just go ahead and jump in here, and we're going to move to our interview with Professor Lachlan Giles. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Seems like real brief since we've been together, but we're back here again with Eric and Aaron. How you guys doing?
Man, I'm doing awesome.
Yeah, doing great. Doing great. Glad to be here again so soon.
Yeah, no, awesome. Well, we have another great guest. We have been having some powerhouses come up here lately, and we have Lachlan Giles. How you doing, Lachlan?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, glad to have you. We want to welcome you. You're a jiu-jitsu superstar, and to us, it's a huge deal. We've followed your career and watched what you've been doing, and are very excited to have this chat with you. Can you just give us a breakdown? Can you tell us where you're from and a bit of how growing up and getting into jiu-jitsu, how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, so from Melbourne, Australia. When I was 14 or 15, I sort of got interested in martial arts after watching a kung fu movie, and
nice.
I tried to find the nearest kung fu school, and I happened to find a place nearby that was doing It's like I was doing kung fu, but some other martial arts, and I actually just wanted to do kung fu, not anything else. And but it had like a little bit of, the guy had done a little bit of jiu-jitsu, and he'd kind of like tried to kind of hybridize them a little bit. So I kind of got a little bit exposed to jiu-jitsu early on, and then after training that for maybe a year or so, I came across the first UFCs and watching Royce Gracie do what he did. So this would have been maybe, probably 17 years ago or so. That I saw the Royce Gracie in the early UFCs, and I saw what jiu-jitsu could do in a fight, I guess, and that made me search for a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school. So I found one that was I was 15 at the time, so I found one online, and my dad drove me, about an hour to go to training and test it out, and I really enjoyed it. So I kind of slowly stopped doing kung fu and started just doing jiu-jitsu after that. And that kind of, once I was into it, it kind of stuck. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And slowly over time, that interest has increased into it eventually becoming my full-time career.
Nice. Well, and there's some notable stuff on that career that we listed a couple of those things in your bio up front, but I think we'll chat about that later as well. Aaron, do you got something?
Yeah. So, looking at your resume, it's certainly self-evident that you've established yourself as a highly successful international competitor in submission grappling. That said, your bronze medal win at ADCC 2019 in the absolute division was nothing short of extraordinary. Now, what has your life been like since you made that win?
It's changed it quite a lot in terms of the opportunity to travel and do seminars and even just, I've got a bunch of instructionals which I already had out there, but they're certainly selling a lot better since then. So it's actually, I haven't actually competed since ADCC, which I was hoping to get back into it soon, but it looks like that will be held off with this COVID situation. But I suppose since then I've been able to. My wife Liv and I, she also trains, and she's also a black belt and an international competitor. We've been able to once a month or once every 4 or 5 weeks. We've been able to kind of get away overseas and do a seminar, across the US and Europe, and we were planning an Asian seminar tour, but that's kind of been put on hold now. But yeah, so it's certainly opened up a lot of doors on that front, and it's just been a lot more busy as well. So I kind of had to start paying a bit more attention to my Instagram account, which I'm not a huge social media poster normally, but now that I've got a bit more of an international profile, I'm sort of trying to utilize that a bit more. So yeah, it's certainly made me more busy, but in a good way.
Lachlan, this is an incredible opportunity for us. Again, us being a tactical show, but all of us training in jiu-jitsu and loving jiu-jitsu. This is a very, very nice treat for us to have you on the show. This is going to be a two-part question. So I just recently picked up your escape videos off of BJJ Fanatics. It's incredible information. I'm only through about 30 or 40% of it. So, what I would say is that first off, I'll start this question. Have you heard of the book by Joss Waitzkin, The Art of Learning?
I have heard of it. I don't know if I've read it, but I have heard of it.
Well, one of the things that sticks out when I see you teach and watch the videos is that it seems like you have this innate capability to teach that's kind of right in line with deconstructing the learning process. Do you have a background in informal education? I know you currently have a PhD in physiotherapy, but your capabilities in teaching is just awesome. I just wondered if you have a formal background in especially the adult learning model.
Not formal, but perhaps it's influenced by my father and my mother were both teachers, and my brother's a teacher as well. So maybe there's some part of that was just kind of transferred across unwillingly. But no, not formal. But I think even just like, as you said, I did my PhD through physiotherapy, but just like often the way you have to structure a thesis and so on is to, I think like people will learn quite well when you put things in the right categories and present it like that in those sort of chunks of information. And I've certainly I've read, I've read not in extreme detail, but I've read the adult learning model and different aspects of that, of how people learn and so on. And I try to, when I learn something, I do try to incorporate it. But yeah, in terms of the PhD, I really think you almost have to put forward for your thesis, you have to put forward a logical argument and kind of make sure you tick off all the points. And I feel like when you're teaching jiu-jitsu, you almost want to do the same thing. It's almost like you're presenting a scientific argument as to, you have to give a rationale for what you're doing and then explain all the steps along the way. But to be honest, a lot of my teaching, I'd say when I teach a technique, a lot of it comes from actually teaching it in class and seeing how, and just observing how my students react to how I teach it, and then adapting that, because we'll often stick with the same theme throughout the week. So it might be escaping side control, for example. And often the first time I'll teach it how I think it should be taught at the time, and then as I observe people trying to escape, I realize I try to see where they're getting stuck, and then the next time I teach it, I'll focus more on that detail, because that seems to be the thing that obviously I didn't focus on enough. And then usually by the end of the week, I have a much clearer idea of what the important points are to teach in that move or that sequence. And I suppose the other thing I try to focus on a lot is the context, which is when the move is appropriate. And I think that's sort of how I've tried to learn my jiu-jitsu as well, in that there's thousands of techniques and you can get good at all of them, but you need to know the context for when the move you're trying to do is appropriate and when is it actually not appropriate. Because if you don't have that, then you can know all the moves in the world, but you won't be effective. So I try when I teach to get the context across, and I think that's probably the thing that maybe people like. One of the things that people like about my teaching style. Maybe you guys can tell me that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the number one thing I've picked up off of both watching your videos, voraciously surfing the web looking for information from you on a regular basis, and that's the one thing that I picked up on. And frankly, I'm like one of those forever blue belts. I just had a real bad back injury that kept me off the mats for almost 2 years, and
Jeez.
I've been back to normal training for about the last 8 months, and again, unfortunately, the COVID-19 thing has really squashed a lot of that. Even though we were doing some underground training, bottom line is I have learned exponentially in the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 months, and I think it's because I took Josh Waiskin's thought process and really just tried to pick apart the parts, number one, that I was most weak at, and to try to shore that up, and then to also, really try to pick apart or deconstruct the process itself, and it's paid dividends for me. And, we've had, there's been 2 black belts teaching over where I'm at right now. But again, because of the current situation, that's ended. So what I will segue into the second part of my question, and that is on our show, being competitive shooters, both, and also all of our involvement in the, gun grappling, all that stuff. Most pointedly in shooting, folks don't realize how important visualization is. And I've likened visualization on the show just recently about when I've watched a technique on a video, meaning jiu-jitsu technique, that I had never even tried before, never had a chance to try to implement. And lo and behold, in class, I pull off some version, if not the version of that technique. So we've had some guests on here, psychologists, so on and so forth, Dr. William April specifically, and he has hit on how the brain, when it sees something, it's almost like a repetition. And I'm kind of paraphrasing some of the discussions. But with COVID-19, do you believe that we can all still progress through the use of video? And do you get use of video instruction yourself from others?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always, I think coming from Australia in a at least it's sort of changing now, but when I was coming up and doing most of my learning up till now, the Brazilians were dominating Jiu-Jitsu, and that's sort of, it's becoming more worldwide, I guess. But the thing that, my view is always, well, the Brazilians are, or the people internationally, not in Australia so much, but internationally, you're seeing the latest developments in Jiu-Jitsu, like the way, the type of techniques that are being used and how they're applied and the strategy and all that. Like the people who are winning the tournaments are the people that you want to study. So coming from Australia, as good as it is to just focus on like what you can learn in class and by your coaches, I think by looking to the most up-to-date thing internationally and watching tape and video there helped me a lot in recognizing the movement patterns and the techniques and so on that I should be focusing on to try to, because I'm trying to compete against, internationally against these guys. So you need to be at that level. So yeah, I myself have done a lot of video study and kind of like what you were talking about before, like you're talking about identifying a weakness and working that. Well, I would also apply that just to watching, anytime I would watch live footage of a competitor, I would, if they did something and I was like, and I didn't feel like I could do the same, then I'd want to learn it. Like if I saw someone using a type of guard or a type of sweep or anything, and I was like, oh, it's interesting that they go there. I don't do that. Well, clearly they're very good, and I'm like, there's a way to develop that skill and add that to my repertoire. So watching that and paying attention, and probably similar to you, often just by watching watching and paying attention, you could then go into class and almost try to do that immediately. But of course, when you add the drilling and so on as well, it kind of consolidates it better. But yeah, like without the actual physical training at the moment, I think one of the best things you can do is watch competition footage and not just watch it to see who wins, but actually watching to try to understand what they're doing and why. And, like you'll see a bunch of different reactions and like try to understand why everything is occurring. If you can understand that, it's going to be very valuable when you get back to training. And then from the instructional point of view, like watching people teach, which is different to watching live footage, I think. Watching people teach to me is good to see their mindset and their thought process and to get to see like what they're trying to do. So I always find especially in high level competition, like you could watch someone teach their knee through pass, for example. You can watch Lucas Lepri and he'll do a knee through pass in competition. and then you could watch him teach it, and there'll often be a disconnect there. Like they'll often look quite different. And that comes down to often there's something he's trying to do, which is usually the one he would teach, is the one that, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to come in and put my knee here and everything's perfect. But then in reality, often there's a whole bunch of unexpected blocks. Your opponent's going to be defending a whole bunch of ways, and it ends up looking a lot more messy. But I think the instructional side, watching you, having someone talk you through it is good to give you an idea of what they were actually originally trying to do. And then watching the footage, the live footage, gives you an idea of how the responses and so on will actually look like when it plays out live. So that's kind of, I think I credit studying tape of live footages and instructionals to a huge amount of what I would say has improved my jiu-jitsu.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because we like to try to emulate success, and that's something that I have doubled down on. And even when I get back home, I've always used video because I'm typically on the road a lot, or being a prior soldier on long deployments, and now as a civilian I travel a lot, so that's another thing that it'll take me away from the gym quite a bit. So video is going to become even more important. And I would be remiss, Lachlan, if I did not give a shout out to Professor Will Haggerty, myself, and Brian's jiu-jitsu instructor back home. That's one of the biggest factors that attracted me to Will, is his teaching methodologies. He has a very similar deconstruction type approach. So I want to make sure that we give a shout out to him.
Yeah, there's a lot of good coaches out there. We're lucky there.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to another question here, and I'll pass this on to Brian. So the leg lock game has become huge in jiu-jitsu. I think I believe that it's because of the Danaher guys and what they're doing, really exposing the various Ashigarami methods and whatnot. You tend to focus more on the 50-50, 80-20-20, and your favorite, it appears, is the outside Senkaku. Yep. One of the things that I picked up on recently was also your use of the reverse De La Riva grip or the rear naked choke grip as you're starting to set that up. And I've been trying to incorporate that when I can get any kind of training in. But that said, you've been giving so much of yourself and so much of what has made you successful on the international scene. This is just me being a less than, not even holding a candle to your capabilities. Does that make it to where you might have to change any strategies moving forward? Can you kind of hit on that?
Yeah, it's a good question. Overall, yeah, I've always, I suppose it's not too different for me, like to how I always have been since I've been competing, is that like at least as a black belt, I believe I've had my YouTube channel up and kind of providing some insight into what I do or my approach towards things pretty much since I've been a competitor. There's probably now going to be more eyes on, since the ADCC performance, there'll probably be a little more focus from my competitors on studying my game and what I'm going to be doing, I think, whereas perhaps previously I'd probably be a guy in the division that they might be aware of, but maybe not like actively studying to sort of try to come up with a strategy to beat. So there could be that element. In the end, I kind of think if your technique, it's a battle of technique, and that's why I'd like to view jiu-jitsu as a battle of technique anyway. There's obviously more to it than that, but like if someone comes in with a newer, more advanced strategy than you have and beats you, then they deserve to win. That's how view jiu-jitsu. So if someone comes up with a good way to counter the leg lock, like play me at my own game and beat me from there or whatever, then I suppose that'll put me back down and back to the drawing board and keep working from there. So I'm not like, I mean, I imagine people will be studying the approach I use. I don't think that I'm the only one that was using that 50-50 style. I happen to have a lot of success with it, but I think the general trend for leg locks was heading there anyway. So I don't know if I gave away anything that couldn't have been eventually found anyway. And I look at competitors like Marcelo Garcia, who, you know, put up his whole game online with MG in action and was still able to go in and win using his own moves. So that's that same game that everyone knew. It's still, you know, like you can learn single leg X guard and try to practice as much as you can to pass in training to deal with single leg X guard and butterfly guard, but then you want to go and roll with Marcelo and try that out. It's a different level. So in some ways, I think if people focus on your game, they sometimes get sucked into playing you at your own game as well. Like sometimes a better strategy is to almost not acknowledge the game, or not acknowledge the game, but just focus on your own game. Instead of developing strategies specific for your opponent, it can sometimes be better to just, okay, like I'm aware they want to take the fight over there. I'm going to just make sure I take it this way. So I think by someone, like in terms of my competitors, if they study it deeply and then want to play me in the leg lock battle, I'll probably be happy with that because I'm continuing to try to evolve it myself in terms of entries and finishes from there. Whereas I'd probably find it more difficult for someone who's kind of seeing my entries and trying to block it as early as possible and force the match into a different direction.
Well, that's a superb answer, and that's kind of what I expected out of you, frankly. I not that I was trying to read your mind by any stretch, but just assumed that a similar answer would come. Now, you mentioned Marcelo Garcia. I mean, I have learned so much from him over the years. I mean, he's such an incredible guy, super humble. You know, that's something that I've always picked up on him, and something that we really gravitate towards folks like that. I mean, you're a humble dude. That's something that's really appealed to me, and that's one of the reasons why I contacted you. But anyway, with that said, Brian, what you got, brother?
Well, you know, things are really different for a lot of folks right now, and all those things may be a little different by the time this airs. We're kind of in the middle of what I'll call this COVID-19 situation. And all of us, you know, in the jiu-jitsu community and obviously other martial arts as well, have been off the mats and unable to train with our professors. But, you know, most of us are trying to figure out ways to improve solo drills, you know, improving movement, other exercise, mobility. But what are you currently doing to stay sharp in the game?
Yeah, so we're running through Absolute MMA. We're running online classes for our students. So that kind of keeps I suppose I have to stay sharp as a coach as well as a competitor. So we're twice a week we're doing a class which is on like our fundamentals, just kind of going through that, and twice a week we're doing video analysis, which is a great chance for me to kind of go back and, you know, sometimes you do a video analysis and it's something you've already studied and you won't get much out of it, and sometimes I'll pick something new or a different competitor that I hadn't studied before. So I'm doing that twice a week, which is kind of keeping me engaged and following. And usually when I study something, you know, when I watch video and especially when you try to break it down to a class. So actually, I mean, this kind of going off topic a little bit, but I actually think that by teaching something, you often get better at it. So I can sometimes watch a footage of someone doing something, and I kind of maybe will pick something up from it. But when I then have to teach a video analysis class, like we're kind of analyzing, and I'll have Liv, my wife Liv, will then demonstrate the position. And often when I actually like get in and start to demonstrate the position that they're in, I'll be like, oh, actually, this and that. Like there'll be things I pick up when I try to replicate the scenario they're in that I wouldn't have picked up just purely by watching. So if you're lucky enough like me to have a partner who's into jiu-jitsu or a flatmate or someone who's with you who you can still practice with you, I think you can get, you can certainly do more. So I'm still at the moment able to, I'm able to roll with my wife. She's a bit lighter than me, so I tend to win a lot. But I'm working on. I mean, I have to adapt it a little bit. I'm heavier. I don't use pounds. So I'm not sure what it is in pounds, but about 20 kilos heavier than Liv. So which maybe is, I don't know, probably like, is it 2 point?
It's about 40. It's about 45 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, 45 pounds. Yeah. So it's enough that I try not to play like a pressure-based game. I'm trying to practice like Toriando passing and moving around the legs and things that are more determined by speed and dexterity and so on. So I'm working that, and we're doing a bit of, I'd say not using strength. I'm trying to do a little bit of wrestling and, but just more the setups again, the part that like, the entries and the setups and trying not to use my strength advantage too much. Although it's hard to not use strength at all. But I'm trying to kind of limit that and work things that we will both get something out of. Obviously we can still drill and get our reps in for anything we need to there. And I'm also working a lot on my flexibility. So actually one thing that I'm looking to do, well, I've been working on a lot actually, is my guard retention. That was actually talking about like identifying weaknesses and focusing on that. Like both of my losses in ADCC, so in my weight division and in the open weight, the match with Gordon as well, both were lost by I would say by what was initiated from a guard pass. Like obviously in the end it was getting my back taken, but the guard pass was what initiated that. So just working my guard retention and I'm stretching a lot because I've been studying it a lot, and I feel like having added flexibility is going to increase my guard retention considerably. So trying to get my hips flexible in the ranges that are required for guard retention. So focusing a lot on that too. A tiny bit of strength and conditioning. I probably should do more. I actually usually don't do any strength work, which is quite different to a lot of people in the high level of jiu-jitsu. But I don't do it because I don't enjoy it, and I feel like when I do a strength session, I have to miss a training session because it makes me sore. But now that my training volume's dropped, I can actually do something to try to keep stronger. So a combination of still being able to train just to a lesser extent and not with as many training partners as normal, studying video, watching tape and trying to replicate the scenarios to get the most out of it. And then doing, working on my flexibility. That's probably how and a little bit on my strength and conditioning. That's how I summarize what I'm doing at the moment.
Good response. And it's good to hear that you're doing that varied amount of things. And I really can relate to what you're talking about with the weight difference, because when I train at our gym, I often will work with my girlfriend, and same scenario. I'm probably about 20 kilograms heavier than she is and considerably stronger. And I try to help her learn while I'm working. But at the same time, I realize that's not always the best learning scenario for me versus working with a more equal opponent. And she's always comfortable working with me, but I'm trying to break her of that, because we're going to learn more working with multiple opponents than we do just drilling with each other. Nothing wrong with drilling, but I definitely think there's more to learn outside of just pairing up with the same person. But I do have a solution for the soreness on your muscle sessions, and this is one of the CrossFit things is the solution for delayed onset muscle soreness is another workout.
Just get straight into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to do just a little, maybe, I don't know if you've gotten much feedback or how you have a sense for it because this is so new, but I am very curious because we're having some really good success with our CrossFit gym going online. How do you feel the online presence is going in the amount, like how much participation are you having? Because some people are looking at making this a future model. And that's one of the things that's going to come out of this is some new ways to train that we never really did because we had the luxury of a gym. Well, now people are doing this and they're going, hey, this kind of works. Do you feel like maybe like with the video analysis and stuff, are you getting some stuff that you weren't getting before?
Yeah, it's, I mean, I still feel like we're getting people signing in. I mean, obviously I feel like there's kind of a few different ways to run an online class. Some are doing like online exercise sessions, and I think those ones will take off. It's not something I'm doing. I just don't have the personality to, I'm not the like, all right, guys, let's do 5 more reps. Like that's some people are very good with that, but that's not so much for me. So mine tends to be more like my online classes tend to be more like a technical analysis, whether I'm demonstrating a technique and trying to teach it, and then or we're watching a video of someone and we're trying to kind of teach it that way. But which I think is good. Like the video analysis class was something that I had tried to. We did have at one point at our actual gym, like a video analysis class on like a Saturday at 12 p.m. Where we would, once a week would study, some tape of someone, some clip and just kind of break it down, which I think people enjoyed, but it became hard, like, cause as I started traveling more, like often, a week I'd be away, and it's not easy to ask someone it's not an easy class to ask someone to cover because you got to do your homework. You can't just show up and teach a video analysis class. You need to kind of be at home and look for good footage and find something interesting, and then like have the video editing skills to be able to cut it and paste it and put it on a drive and bring it into class to actually be able to replicate it. So that kind of stopped, although it is something I'd like to continue at the gym when we're back and have other people doing it. So it's not just me having to do the extra work. So like having a mix of people kind of running a class like that, I think would be really good. So in terms of, and then I think there's probably some people who will potentially do like online classes. I still think I think like an online website is a if you look at like, someone like, you've got like Kaynan and the Mendes brothers, Marcelo, like who have got those online training platforms. I feel like they've already got a very refined product out there that, like if you wanted to learn a particular skill, you can find that exact thing and you can see them teaching a class on it or whatever. I think that's probably going to beat the online kind of just the regular, the kind of sporadic online class model, where the instructor just kind of pops in and shows something, because you don't know what, being able to pick and choose what you're learning on the day, I think is a better approach. But at the same time, having that interactivity is pretty good, where someone can ask questions. And that's one thing that I think has been quite valuable, is that people are on a Zoom meeting with us and we're teaching a class, and they can ask questions and make sure that they really understand it that way, which they might not get from just observing.
Good. No, it's obviously there's no replacement for sparring and physical contact, but it is cool that you're at least continuing to reach out and help the community. That's I think that's momentous of you to do, because there are definitely gyms that have basically just gone silent, and that's a tragedy. That's for sure. So
there's something like we've got like one of our students, Alessia, is running a yoga class for us during the week, and she's a yoga teacher. And like I feel like that's worked quite well, or really well. Like I think something like that, which like, people will go to the yoga studio, but it's actually all the movements you could have been doing at home as well. So models like that, I think, might, have a bigger online, potentially could follow up with this online content thing, as opposed to necessarily being something that you have to go in to do. But then, at the same time, there's always the social aspect as well, which people like to go in. And I mean, that's probably one of the things that I miss the most, apart from the training, is just going into the gym and chatting with everyone and the socializing.
Oh, for sure, without a doubt, that is a big thing, and that's one of the reasons that I feel like one of the reasons my girlfriend has an issue is she's not as outgoing with people. So when we go into the gym, she wants to hover near me, but I'm always the one talking to everybody and catching up on what's going on and what the dirt is and how you been and how's your kids, all that. But right on. Well, hey Aaron, what do you got?
Yeah, hey Lachlan. Now let's fast forward to a world when we're not dealing with, this world pandemic. What does a typical week look like when you're prepping for a big tournament or a big competition? What's it look like when you don't have to deal with this pandemic thing?
Yeah, so prepping for a big tournament, normally we have, so I'll say, because I have it more lately, I've been kind of going like 3 or 4 weeks in Melbourne, and then I'd be away for a week or maybe 2 weeks doing seminars, just trying to make the most of my result. But normally when I'm in Melbourne, we have a pro training session, which is Monday to Thursday at 9:30 in the morning, and that runs for about 2 hours. So that's usually where I do my training, which would be about half an hour. We warm up with drills, so we do about half an hour of drilling. Then we do specific training, so you get to choose, whatever you're working on, you get to start from that position, and it's you go for 5 minutes, your partner goes for 5 minutes, then you change partners, and you can kind of get to work on the specific area of your game and get a lot of practice from there, the thing that you're trying to work. And then we would finish with about half an hour of rolling, so and then some a few stretches at the end, just to stretches and question and answer at the end, just to kind of finish it all up. And so that's my actual training for myself. And then there'll be the classes. So usually at night, I teach, 2 or 3 classes during the night time, usually 1 fundamentals and 1 intermediate or advanced session. In between that, depending on what's going on, like if I'm filming an instructional, I'll be kind of, I might have someone in between that time to film some techniques, and then I'd be video editing in the meantime, or something of that sort. And then the rest is often just kind of trying to relax my body. So if I'm training a lot, I feel like if I'm not spending most of the rest of the day lying down, I don't recover properly. So I tend to just chill out. And if I'm doing my video editing, I'm usually sort of sitting in bed with the laptop, and that's all pretty easy. And possibly studying tape. But yeah, it's a pretty repetitive thing to do, but I enjoy it like that. Just nice and simple. Go to training and spend the rest of your time recovering and thinking about how to improve.
Well, awesome answer, Professor. Real quick, still on that note, because I know the audience wants to know all of these details. What do you do for cardio specifically? Meaning, your cardio that enhances your jiu-jitsu. What does that look like during the week?
For cardio, I usually you did ask about preparation for a tournament as well, so I'll answer that too. But for cardio, I actually tend to just train wrestling. I find that's like training the sport of wrestling is very intense much more intense than jiu-jitsu. I guess I can kind of coast a bit in jiu-jitsu, and depending who I'm rolling, sometimes I can almost use that to rest and recover. Whereas with wrestling, even if I'm going against someone who I'm more skilled than, I feel like it's hard work. You're constantly having to lower and raise your center of gravity and someone else's center of gravity as well. So It's if I train wrestling, when I go back to jiu-jitsu, then I can kind of roll and it feels easy cardio wise. So that's basically what I did in prep for ADCC and so on as well in terms of my cardio. And I don't actually do any external cardio outside of that, out of just training. So and you also asked about preparing for a tournament. So when I'm preparing for a tournament, I still will just do those pro sessions in the morning, but the intensity of my rolls will increase and the volume will decrease. So I'll do, I think probably the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks leading up to, for example, ADCC, I would instead of doing like a 2-hour session, I'd cut it down to maybe an hour. I'd do the drills, but then I'd just do just rolls after that. So we would kind of warm up with drills, and then I would do maybe half an hour of rolling, but hard rolls, like trying to win every scramble, every point, not give up a single grip if I can, which is much more intense on the body, and I don't think I could sustain that for 2 hours a day at all. So I normally would say roll at, we'll say like 70-80%, where I'm obviously trying, and there'll be little bursts where I'm having to try hard, but at the same time, there's plenty of time where I'm kind of relaxed and mostly focusing on skill development. Whereas when I'm trying to prepare for a tournament, I have to focus less on skill development and more on application, and just trying to be as aggressive and effective as possible with the techniques I'm doing. So it's kind of a different focus, less enjoyable actually, but necessary.
Well, back to your comment about wrestling, my son wrestled, and I would go to his workouts, and I have to agree. I think those in the sports community know that the best way to practice your sport is sport-specific cardio. So that makes perfect sense. Regarding your answer, now you're an Australian national champion in freestyle wrestling, correct?
I am, yes. It's a very different field to what you'd find in the US, though. So I should put this in as well. So I won the nationals which was last year, but it was an Olympic qualifier year. So to potentially qualify for the Olympics, you had to go into a certain weight division, and I think you had to your result directly impacted your chance of being selected. And my weight, I went in the 79 kilo division, which is a non-Olympic weight division. So what happened was there was a 74 kilo division. I think it's 74, and the next one up was 83, I think. And both of those were like, if anyone was really good, like had potential to get to the Olympics, they would have cut weight or went up. Now, my goal was ADCC, and I was doing the wrestling tournament just to get practice at doing that. Like, I was trying to kind of get more practice implementing what I'd been training in, against resisting opponents and against good resisting opponents. So my goal was not to try and get to the Olympics, and that's why I didn't cut weight for it. I didn't see interfering with my ADCC prep by cutting weight and going down to 74 as a useful thing to do. But what happened was, I think I went in what I'd say is a weaker division than would have been if it was an Olympic qualification division, because most of the people who perhaps weighed the same as me would have cut or went up. Probably would have cut. Yeah. So I got that title, but I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't mean I'm the best wrestler in Australia. There's some definitely people my weight who would beat me. But I've trained pretty hard in wrestling. I've spent the last few years, I'd say like 4 or 5 years, taking it reasonably seriously. So I do enjoy it. It's hard, but I enjoy it.
Well, the ADCC model most assuredly has wrestling, and if folks aren't wrestling in ADCC, they're not going to be as successful, for sure. Now, regarding, again, this is doubling down on preparation for international competition. So I'll give you a slight example from the shooting community. In shooting, again, I refer back to both visualization, and I'll hit on something that's crucial, I think, in all realms of performance, and that's self-image, to use Lenny Basham's protocol, and then Dr. James Lauer, what he calls a performer self. And I'm sure that with your education background, you're probably tracking some of that, if not specifically. But at the international level, I believe, not because I am a performer at that level, but just because I've studied it, not having a mental prep game can separate folks from the podium and not hitting the podium, especially at the international level. So Lenny Basham's protocol, using a affirmation statement that may be like, say, a future goal, but speaking about it in the present, and writing logs down every day to change your brain chemistry to believe that you are that of that competitor, or in James Lauer's protocols about the performer self, and kind of getting your mental game above your competitors. Is there anything that you do? I know that may be a loaded question, but is there anything that you do on the mental side like that?
To be honest, it's perhaps something I should study a bit more in. I've certainly lost matches before where I felt like it was not necessarily my technical ability, but my mindset. I've been too hesitant, or sometimes what I guess you'd say, like, respect your opponent, or kind of think your opponent's going to be too good that you become hesitant to actually try the move that you normally would do, because that's what you do in training. I've certainly lost matches like that, and I probably should look into some of the more strategies to train that out of yourself. So that's you bring up a good point, and I might write that down and study those those things you said there. Because it is interesting. Like I suppose in the open weight division, I kind of went in there with no, like to be honest, I actually didn't expect to win those matches, but at the same time, that might have made my mind more relaxed and focused on just doing what I do, because I kind of went in there like, all right, well, I'm fighting Kaynan Duarte, like, I'm just going to go hard. Like, I'm going to go as hard as I can for my leg entry. And
incredible match.
Yeah, thank you. So going into that, I kind of maybe was more aggressive at fighting my game and less worried about it not working, maybe purely from the fact that I kind of almost expected it not to work. But I was like, well, all you can do is try it, whereas I feel like the hesitation side that maybe I've had before in previous matches might have mean I'm looking for the perfect setup, which is obviously never going to happen, and that can actually impact your performance more. It lets your opponent start to get into their game if you're hesitating on exactly when to try to implement your game. So I probably actually should look at the strategies that the experts in the field are using to kind of maximize the mindset. Some of those things that you're saying there, which to be honest, I haven't read a lot about, but some of the things you're saying, I've noticed some people do that, and some of the competitors. So,
well, Lachlan, what I will say is, and again, I know that I keep, I beat a dead horse sometimes when I say this. I've said this in the past. One of our coaches, a dear friend, and he's a black belt under, I believe it's Miguel Machado. I hope I didn't get that right. Mike can slap me around the next time. But he's a black belt, and he has won some high. I mean, he's got a few gold medals in the Masters divisions, and he was also a Division I wrestler and a high performing national. He's a national champion in IDPA and in pistol shooting. He's one of the best performers that I know. And when I was trying to meet some goals in my shooting back years ago, even before I was a soldier, I had the goal of making masterclass in IDPA. And I hit plateaus for a long time, and he assigned me Lenny Basham's protocol. And I can give you some information after the show. But bottom line is, I attribute my movement from sharpshooter to expert to masterclass. And I always say this on the show too. I'm not shooting masterclass right now. I'm sitting in expert level right now. But I did make masterclass using that protocol, and I attribute every bit of that quick jump to using that protocol. So,
wow.
I would really recommend that highly, and I would tell you right now that my current affirmation statement is revolving around some jiu-jitsu goals, and so yeah, I'll send you some of that information if you're interested, Lachlan.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, what you got, buddy?
Well, this has been just a wonderful conversation and so enlightening to hear you share what you shared, but I would like to know what, kind of coming from what has inspired you, if you could pick three, and surely more or less is fine, but what are the three most influential jiu-jitsu fighters to what have helped you become a competitor?
Yeah, that's a good question. As in, there's a lot of people I can answer.
Oh, sure. I bet.
So, okay, this might sound funny, but probably the people I study the most in competition are the Meow brothers. And that might seem funny because I'm probably a slightly different body type to them, and they're kind of light and very flexible, but I've rolled with, I think one of the reasons is I've rolled with the Meow brothers, and to have people who are, considerably lighter than you, who could just, destroy you technically, was a pretty big eye opener. Like, the first time I rolled with them, and they're actually really good from everywhere. But what I felt with that when I rolled them was that I didn't have any excuses, like I've rolled with people who had beaten me before, and they were like, maybe they're my weight, but more aggressive, or, or heavier and so on. And you can always kind of make an excuse, but going against someone like considerably lighter, they don't even feel particularly strong, just technique. And, obviously they're quite aggressive with it, but just like from a technical point of view, so for me, seeing what they could do to beat someone my size, I was like, okay, well, I need to study what they're doing. And they would do that to just about everyone that they were training with. And so I actually studied the Meow brothers a lot, not just their guard, but their passing as well. But they were a big influence for the K guard entries that I was using into 50-50 at ADCC. So I think what I found was and I suppose we can go to another influence, obviously I'll say the Danaher Death Squad team in terms of, and I know he's not part of their team anymore, but I'll include Eddie Cummings in there as well, because he might be the one that I studied the most out of those guys. But Eddie Cummings and Gary Tonnen, and their leg locks, I think that made a huge influence on me in terms of viewing the leg lock game as a system. And probably the other one I'd say is Marcelo Garcia, because that some of these kind of linked one to the other. So, for example, Marcelo Garcia, seeing his single leg X guard and butterfly game, made it, which was a game I was playing quite a lot in competition in IBJJF tournaments, and then from that to then see the Danaher guys using positions that were similar to single X, but then to get heel hook finishes, I was kind of like, oh, okay, I can pretty easily transfer my skills I've got now into becoming a good leg lock system. So I kind of went on to that. And then more recently, that was all kind of playing a seated guard and kind of working to get to single leg X to get to the leg locks. And that was kind of how I was using my strategy. And then, so you've got this like forward posture, like leaning forward. But I also found that opened me up a little bit to like counter pass, like the passer can get more likely to get underhooks and potentially they can dive on guillotines and kimuras as well. So it's as much as it's a very good offensive style, there's also you open yourself up. It's a more risk-taking style. And then I was like, okay, well, what are the Miao brothers doing when they fight in no-gi? And they were using this K-guard, so they were still able to actually play from on their back, which was almost kind of considered dead in no-gi, like playing on your back, just because like it can be hard to like pull on sleeves and collars and break your opponent's posture to play the traditional game that you would play on your back. But they're playing on their back, but working into K-guard. And I was like, oh, that actually solves a lot of the potential risks that you have by sitting up, the guillotines, the kimuras and all that. By playing off your back, your only real potential way to get submitted from there would be a leg lock, but you're wanting to get to the legs anyway. So if they go for a leg lock on you, you can kind of go for one yourself. And I felt like actually also the guard passing side of it, if you can develop it does require a little bit of flexibility, but developing a defense for like a good Toriando defense and then playing with your feet on the outside makes getting your guard passed a little harder as well. So kind of recognizing what the Miaos were doing and then adjusting my leg lock game to play more 50-50 and using their entries, I think had a huge influence as well. So it comes down to Marcelo, the Danaher guys, and then the Miaos. And it wasn't all in that, it wasn't like a deliberate thing in that order, but I'm kind of painting it as a story like that because that's kind of how my focus of my game somewhat evolved.
Nice. No, that's I can see how those can be huge influences because that's that what you've described there is such a body of knowledge to look at. I mean, that's impressive. So, well, I think
go ahead. And obviously that's just like I'm pretty much just talking about guard there. I mean, I do like guard. But I probably spent more time in the last 10 years working my guard passing than my guard. I think guard passing is just a harder skill in general than playing guard for a lot of like high level competitors. So I'm probably not known for my guard passing, but it's certainly something I have spent a lot of time on, and I could probably name different influences for that, but maybe we won't get into that.
Fair enough. Well, there's always the pulling guard jokes that we give everyone, but it's all good.
I train wrestling now, so I can make those jokes too.
Right. You'll grow up someday. What do you mean? Well, you always pull guard. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I think we're going to switch gears a little bit. This has been awesome talking about all of this technical stuff, but I think we're going to hit up a little bit of what Lachlan's like. What do you got going on over there, Aaron?
Now we're going to a section that we call "What's Your Favorite Color" section of the show. Now, just going to ask you a couple of questions so people can get to know you a little bit better. Now, outside of jiu-jitsu, and I'm taking reading off the table because I'll tell you everybody at this level loves to read. But outside of jiu-jitsu and reading, what is it that you enjoy doing?
Outside of jiu-jitsu and reading, probably just eating.
Eating? Well, that's a good answer.
I suppose sometimes I think I train jiu-jitsu just so I can eat. I'm not sure. It lets me. I enjoy like a good meal. That's probably.
Okay, then what kind of meal is it? What's name off some stuff that you enjoy? Pretty
varied. To be honest, like I could name a whole bunch of different things. Yeah, I think like one of the best meals is a good steak. That's really good.
Oh yeah,
Bibimbap, which is a Korean dish, I quite like.
very
nice. Which is like a pork, Vietnamese pork roll. I like that for lunch. But anything, burgers or anything that's unhealthy is usually good. Not that I eat all the time unhealthy. I'm just saying, I try to eat reasonably healthy, and even more so of a concerted effort to do that when I'm not training as hard, like right now. But I feel like when I'm training hard, I get more excuses to indulge on less healthy meals.
That's awesome. And that's some good insight because, people hear you training and working at the international level, and, all of us love to cheat a little bit so that we feel okay after hearing that.
Actually, now, I think one thing to talk about, which is maybe you might have got this impression, maybe from some of our discussion, but I feel like a big part of what I try to focus on is kind of like a lot of time when people think, oh, how do I improve? They try to look to add more things in. I actually think one of the best things you can do is cut out the less necessary things. Like if take a look at, okay, for me it's like, okay, what makes you win a jiu-jitsu tournament? And I would say the prevailing factor for the majority of that is your technical skill. Like I would say that's I'd put that as number one, and then on top of that you can put some other things like your conditioning and your mental state and other things will come into that. But from my opinion, like the most important thing is that, and I'll spend the majority of my effort on that. And therefore, when you kind of like categorize it like that, some of the other things like diet and so on, which are obviously can influence performance. But to me, if I'm spending most of my time focused on what gets me better at that primary thing, then that's going to have the biggest impact on my performance. So long as the other things aren't like totally out of whack, if that part's there. So that tends to be how I kind of approach my jiu-jitsu, and I think like or performance, and I feel like sometimes it's more about cutting out and doing less of something else, so you can do more of the thing that is important.
Awesome. Well, now this question sometimes stumps people, but are you a music fan?
To be honest, I mean, I don't dislike music, but I actually don't really listen to music when I'm just at home. Like I almost never put music on and just go, I'm just going to listen to music. Obviously, we have music playing at the gym, and that kind of gives me, I think like having a beat to roll to and so on helps a lot. So yeah, you're going to ask me my favorite musicians? Is that the?
Yes, that was coming. But if it's something that you're not into, we're okay.
I mean, I still like. I don't dislike music, but it's not something I like. I'm not like avid musician. When I was younger, I was going to answer. When I was younger, I was more into like heavy metal and Metallica and so on when I was growing up. So Metallica and Rage Against the Machine and those sort of bands. Now if I'm listening to music, it's something more calm, like The National is a band I listen to, which they're more kind of relaxed music.
Oh,
but
awesome.
As I said, and then usually when we're training, like someone will put on like hip hop or something, which it's not really something I would ever listen to at home. But I feel like the beat can be good to train to. So
that's awesome. Good answers. Those are perfect answers. So hey, Eric, what you got there, buddy?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Aaron. So Lachlan, in closing, because we're at the end of the show and we've taken enough of your time, back to the subject we were talking about before. So I made sure that I got a good title of this book. This is one that I recommend highly, and this came from one of our coaches, Paul Sharp of Sharp Defense, and it's called The New Toughness Training for Sport by Dr. James Lauer. That is a superb book, And I will also send you a link to the Lanny Basham protocol as well. Just, check those out and let me know what you think of them. Man, at your level, I'm just throwing something out there. At your level, and you add that to your game, man, I really think that it could pay dividends for you, if I can say so from my seat.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'd like to look more into. I look into that. So Lenny Basham and James Lauer, is that correct?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could be it could be really good, actually. So thank you.
And I'll shoot those links over to you as well. Well, listen, this has been incredible. This has been a world-class look into performance and how you've been successful. I know our audience is going to get so much out of this. And that's the theme of our show, honestly, Lachlan, is what we do to train to get better at what's most important for self-protection. And so that's kind of what we try to draw out of our audience, out of our guests is, what helps them perform. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It was a very good discussion.
Well, with that said, I think we'll go ahead and bid you good night, sir, and we will certainly, hopefully, have you back on.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
Guys, what do you think of that? Is that guy world-class or what?
Man, what an awesome interview. I'm so pumped. I think we've talked about this multiple times, is that we're not just about firearms and the multidisciplinary side. Of course, jiu-jitsu is a part of the multidisciplinary training modalities. But let's face it, we like pure jiu-jitsu. We like sports jiu-jitsu. We like it all. So we want to make our show gravitate, kind of like the third of it. I want it to be jiu-jitsu. I mean, we love it so much, and it does so much for us and our audience members that, man, I'm really pumped about this. It's kind of interesting that right out of the hopper, our first major jiu-jitsu guest was at the level of Lachlan. So it's going to be tough to follow in those shoes, I think. What do you?
Absolutely. And I think it's very fitting that this is the show that we're, announcing the giveaway for that rash guard too, because I love my Origin rash guard. That thing is so comfortable. And George Washington riding a rattlesnake, dude.
Man,
riding the "Don't Tread on Me"
right
rattlesnake.
Yeah,
a little bit of a Gadsden theme.
That thing is money.
What you got, Aaron?
That is money.
I'm just saying that, and it's pretty timely that rash guard celebrates this country, because we've got a lot of crazy. Let's just say, there's a lot of crazy crap going on that baffles me every day. So, and it's disheartening. We're not going to go too deep into politics or, but any freedom-loving American sees all this stuff, and it's heartbreaking.
Well, Aaron,
for there to be so much hate towards police officers. Yes, there's some bad cops. Everybody's always known that. You feel like you got to say that. But at the same time, 99% of them are amazing people that work so hard and put their lives in danger every freaking night. And here we are.
That is a thankless job.
Canceling the show Cops after 31 years. Canceling one of my favorite shows, Live PD. I went on to try and watch it tonight on the A&E app on my Apple TV. It's gone. And so all those people that have worked for years and years, they can't even see their own shows anymore on the channel's app. It's crazy. Wow. I know you have a lot of stuff going on there near you in Olympia and Seattle, don't you, Brian?
Yeah, it's a little disturbing, actually. There's and I will give credit that there is not a ton of violence. That I do want to throw that out there, because there's a lot of all of the media that I've seen is completely biased one way or the other. And of course, those of us that listen to this show may fall a little farther to one side. But there's a chunk of Seattle right now where the 9th Precinct police station is that was abandoned because of viable threats of it being burned down and officers being killed. And there's citizens have basically set up barricades in an area and are calling it the autonomous zone. And they claim to be free from government and not under the rule of law. And that just doesn't sit well with me. And I understand they're trying to make changes, but I don't know that this is the right way to do it, man. There's definitely, I support everyone's right to speech and everyone's right to protest. But when you start breaking things and taking things, that's where you start to lose my respect. Because I don't think that's the right way to do it. And the complaint is that no one's going to listen if they don't. And the problem is you're not going to be treated well if that's the method that you choose to do it in. So I'm hoping this stuff kind of turns around. We're not seeing too much of it. I feel like the nationwide, the stuff's kind of calmed down a little bit. But like talking with Dr. April last week, people being locked up for this period of time has kind of fed the fire that's burning for people to get out and kind of, incite some of these things. So hopefully we can kind of start coming out of that, and maybe people just being out and about, we can start to react and engage with each other again, because that's definitely what's going on in Seattle is creating a divide. It is not creating unity. And the demands that are coming out of that little camp are all about divide. They are not about unity. And they would like to tell us that it is, and that's not what I'm seeing. So hopefully we don't get too lit up about this. But
that's Orwellian newspeak. I mean, when you're saying that stuff is uniting, it's backwards. It's the ministry of truth.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and what I would add, guys.
What do you think?
Sorry, guys. What I would add is that it is the antithesis of a civil society. Law enforcement, Aaron, you hit it on the head, 99%. That's an accurate percentage. Overall, 99% of all interaction with law enforcement, it goes without incident. And the first individuals that start to complain, because this has happened, in recent history, is when law enforcement pulls away from regions. It hurts the folks that are stricken by poverty the most. And so we cannot have a civil society without the rule of law. And this is not the rule of law. I mean, I'm just going to say what it is. I mean, I believe that these people that are, I'll just look at it this way. I thought that borders were illegal, that they were against human rights. Well, they're in Seattle. They're putting up walls, and also they're supporting the Second Amendment now. Now, I'm not saying that maybe some of the folks that are on the radical left that maybe they like guns, but for the most part, I'm talking about individuals that believe in iron-fisted attitudes. Maybe they like them, but the majority of the left do not like guns, but all of a sudden they're good, So I know I probably got a little more
to help them keep their higher ground, right?
So we want this to end peacefully. Obviously, we don't want anybody harmed, but one thing is for certain, that the city and the state definitely need to move in there and peacefully dismantle that, because that's breaking the law. So that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, and there's so many horrible, atrocious, human trafficking, child pornography, all manner of horrific things that are happening right in front of our faces that we can be against, that you can be anti. It's really easy to be anti those things. But to choose to be anti-cop and anti-first responder just makes no sense to me when we live in a world full of pure evil that you could actually make a difference and do something about. But instead, anti-cop is where the sentiment in the media is just overwhelmingly being flooded 24/7 today. I just does not sit well with me.
Well, and if I could add, Brian, that I want them, if they're going to protest something, protest all the violence in Chicago every weekend. The amount of deaths and shootings and gang violence and just pure violence in the city of Chicago. Now, granted, I've heard some really good police officers in recent days remind everybody, that's just in pockets. I do believe that Chicago is a great city, but as an example, they do have some of the worst crime, and nobody protests that. So, this action, this police officer, I won't mention his name. Unfortunately, he appears to be dead wrong. He should have not held that George Floyd down the way that he did, because had he not done that, he would likely be alive. So that's something to be upset about. But bottom line is that we need to put our rage towards something else and actually do it peacefully.
Absolutely. Well, we could talk about this for quite a while and probably get nowhere, because unfortunately I don't think our words are going to land in the ears of the folks that are causing these problems. But it's just something. Think about what America means to you and the freedoms that we do have here. Our country's made all kinds of mistakes. That doesn't mean you can't be proud about who you are and where you are. I don't need to repent for being born in Washington and raised as a thinking human being. And I don't need to be told how to think either. So turns out I was born from God with both of those abilities. So anyhow, good to remember.
That's right.
So I think we're going to go ahead and move into accountability. Did you want to start us off, Aaron?
Hey, sure. I was just about to say, hey, I'll kick it off. Well,
and I think you may have me beat this week on some stuff. Go ahead.
Let's see.
I'm a little jealous.
Hey, buddy, you're going to put me to shame on exercise again, I'm sure. So I'll let that out of the bag too. So with my just getting back to work, I'll be honest that my workouts have slipped trying to get everything back in order. But I have been making sure I'm doing my walks with my family, but I've been sticking with as much as I can. I think I did my squats and my pull-ups 3 days this week, but I'll get back heavy in the workouts next week. I think I can get back to my wife's gym by then anyway, so that'll be awesome. Now for jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, and I'm really embarrassed about this since we had this world-class BJJ star on our show, I didn't get to go to jiu-jitsu either, so I know. I'm ashamed, Eric and Brian. Yeah, I knew I would.
At least
hear that
you get to go.
Oh shoot, that's true. Sorry, Brian.
Really rubbing it in, man.
Yeah, I can go and I didn't go. That's pretty darn lame. So sorry, guys. But so on to some things that I did accomplish. I worked every single day about 5 minutes on visualization. And man, I know that's going to help me a ton. And yeah, and again, I keep reading my Lenny Basham book. I should have that buttoned up here the next day. Awesome book. More to come on that, right, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
So now I read my affirmation statement. As you guys have heard me talk about, I've got a class up IDPA affirmation statement, and I've been reading that about 3 times a day. I compared to Mike Brown, I can't remember how many times he did it a day, but hey, 3 times is pretty good for me. So Tuesday, I had the pleasure and fun of giving a private lesson to this gentleman that I met at IDPA a couple of months ago. He wanted to learn a little bit about appendix carry, so So I gave him some info on that, coached him on how he should set up his holster and run his belt, and that helped him a ton. That's actually one of the hardest parts of appendix, is getting your holster, the correct holster, and getting everything adjusted, and of course your belt too. So it was a lot of fun. So on to the drill of the week. What's funny is that I actually literally just shot this. I just got home from the range about an hour or so ago. So on my scores, the thing that I'm stoked about is that I look back on our last time that we had the fast drill, and I did improve on that. Not a lot, but I definitely did. So now my first one, I ran clean, but it was 7.44 seconds. I did actually hang up on my shirt on the reload, but still eked it out there at a decent speed there. But so then my second time, this is the one I was excited about. I did it in 6.49, and it was clean. So that one was my best run. Now my third one, I don't know what happened, but I went way too fast. 6.21 seconds, minus 3 points, but it wasn't just minus 3 points. You guys saw that picture. It was like in a straight line up. But so I guess that's just fine. I'm still proud of those scores. So that's all I've got for today, guys. How about you? Who's going to go next here?
Well, I'll take it. Eric can finish up.
Awesome.
I'll just start right out with my lameness. Of course, our recording schedule's been a little off, so I have not had an opportunity to be to the range, and that was where I was alluding to. Is Aaron not only shot the drill, I did not shoot the drill. Aaron got to the range multiple times this week, and even though he didn't roll, that is very cool, and I'm jealous because I don't have that opportunity currently. I will in the future, but at the moment, I did not get to do any live fire. I did a little bit of dry fire, but I still am unable to go to my jiu-jitsu gym. I am, for the first time last week, we actually got to go live in the CrossFit gym, and I got to go back again this week, but just once. However, I have done 3 CrossFit workouts this week so far. Week's not over. I might get another one in tomorrow. And those have been pretty high energy. I mean, they have been, I've been feeling it. Did 100 wall balls the other day. That is a lot of wall balls.
Hell yeah, it is, man.
my thighs are talking to me when I walk around or sit down. When I stand up from recording, I'm gonna feel it. But no, it's really good to be staying in shape during this, and that was one of my goals when this all started, and none of us thought it would last this long for sure. You know, they talked about a couple weeks when we started, and we're into a few months now, and we here in Washington still don't have an end date. We don't know when we're going to be able to go back to gyms. And
wow.
This week in the news, they're talking about spikes in numbers, and it's like, you folks got to realize this lockdown was not to make it go away. It was to slow it down so hospitals weren't overwhelmed. At some point, we have to go back into the world and let it run its course. We cannot continue to hide for the rest of our lives. And unfortunately, I feel like that may be what our governor thinks. But side rant, I am really looking forward to getting back to jiu-jitsu when I can. It would be really cool if we knew when that was. And, fortunately for me, I do have a few friends that keep me motivated, and we talk about it, and friends from the gym that keep me working out even though we're not in the gym. So that's one thing about this is, we bounce this off each other to keep, the 3 of us accountable to each other. But I have other counterparts in these other areas that I do for my, athletic or, physical stuff that also keep me accountable. And all of those are just they're all links in the chain, man. And that chain's keeping me from falling on the ground. So I'm going to keep my chain full of links and connected so that I stay in this, even though we don't have the access to the things we normally do. So just stoked to be here, man, and awesome always talking with you guys. So I'll hand it off to you, Eric.
Man, guys, as always, I always say this. I love hearing your guys' accountability. It's truthfully a delight to hear what you guys are doing. So it motivates me as well. So as far as my accountability, I had 5 dry fire sessions this week, and I did each session. I did the Todd Green fast drill as we prescribed, and I also did the FBI 2019 qual. Now, a few comments about dry fire, because I know, when I talk about the times I was meeting, well, that's not the real thing. Yeah, it's not. But I was able to, multiple runs, complete the dry fire with called shots. And those folks in the audience that know about calling shots, when you're dry firing, you have to be honest with yourself if you would have completed or made that shot. So multiple times I was able to get in under 5 seconds. Now, what I would put an estimate on my actual live fire the last time that Brian and I were able to shoot this together, my PR was 5.9 seconds. So I would put a time on it. I would say I probably eked out 5.5 if I did it live. So I'm getting closer and closer, but the dry fire is definitely helping. Now, regarding the FBI 2019 qual, I will tell you I'm really surprised at how much I enjoy that as a dry fire drill. It encompasses a lot of skills, but more importantly, in dry fire, I don't think we get near as much of the fast up close targets and the contrast between having to make a very precise shot and this drill, if you set it up right with scaled down targets, I really feel like I'm having to really tighten up everything and get that perfect trigger press on the 25-yard piece of that call. So this is becoming one of my favorite drills for dry fire. So enough about that. My early morning workouts, I was on some travel again, so I only got 2 of my early morning workouts, and they consisted of basically the same workout but a little tweak, which included 3 3-minute rounds on jump rope, which for folks that do a lot of jump rope, that's probably not a big deal, but it's been a while since I've focused on that. So 3-minute rounds jump rope is a little tough. And then after that, I did a kettlebell circuit. One day I did kettlebell swings. Let me digress a second. Each time I did this circuit, it consisted of kettlebell swings, kettlebell snatches, kettlebell goblet squats, and why am I forgetting the other one? Oh, clean and press. So those 4 movements I would do back to back, and I did that 4 times, with a little bit of rest. And really, that whole workout smoked me. So I'm kind of getting to the point where my focus is on both strength and conditioning. So that's the way that went. So for my education this week, guys, I've been reading 2 books. Ben Stoger's book, Breakthrough Marksmanship. And for those in the audience that's read Brian Enos's book, it's got a lot of the same principles. And what I will say is that shooting is very, very feel-oriented and vision-oriented, and it can be very esoteric. So Ben's book has a little bit of that in there, maybe not as much as Brian Enos's, but I am learning a lot. I mean, so much more than I thought I would. So I definitely recommend that book. And then I had an interest from the Cella Scouts in Rhodesia. Their counterinsurgency is storied, so I picked up a book on that That was real interesting. But nonetheless, my favorite thing I did this week, education-wise, due to our guest, Lachlan Giles has a newer video set of videos called High Percentage Chokes. That's from a no-gi perspective. Man, Lachlan puts out such incredible information. His teaching style is so concise and easy to understand. And man, a lot of content. And frankly, speaking of that, Brian, sitting here thinking about us being in the same area again soon, without jiu-jitsu, man, it's going to be hard to hit the ground and not have jiu-jitsu. So, brother, I would love to have you over at the house, man, because we can work a lot of this stuff I've been working either over where I'm at right now and a lot more of this information. So, man, you got some jiu-jitsu mats.
Absolutely.
I would love that, man.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have to make that happen because it looks like we may not have regular jiu-jitsu for a while. So with that said, I think I'll go ahead and move to the new drill of the week. And what we're going to do, we're kind of doing some retest, but I want to focus on the IDPA 5x5 again, except we're going to do it this way. I would say the two most difficult pieces of the 5x5 is the strong hand only and the 4 shots and then 1 to the head. And so that's what we're going to do. We're just going to split it in half, and we're going to do the strong hand only build drill, the 5 shots, and then also the 5 shots to the IDPA center, and then 4 shots, and then 1 to the head. So we'll go ahead and list that in the show notes and make sure you guys are tracking exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And let's go ahead and talk about that the next show, how we do.
Yeah, that's a good idea, bro. That's a good idea.
I like it.
Well, what do you think, guys?
I believe I'll be shooting that in just a couple of days, so that's
awesome.
Good.
That's awesome. Can't wait to hear about it, Brian. I didn't realize you couldn't shoot still, so.
Oh yeah, it's part schedule, part range availability.
Yeah.
So things are. I'm just in a spot right now where I can't always make it. I do have access to a location, but I cannot get there all the time. And as you mentioned last time, I've been doing, I guess I shouldn't have left that out of my accountability. I have been doing some flying, and that has been awesome. But it has also impacted my range schedule. So,
but you're getting after it.
Well,
you don't always have to do everything. We'll always be that way, I hope.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just another avenue of learning, and that is what we are all about. So
that is right.
So I hope you learned something today.
Yes.
Well, guys, I think that closes out the show. What do y'all think?
That'll do it, man.
Yeah, great show, guys. Good job, everybody on your accountability, and man, great guest, Lachlan Giles.
Very cool. Look him up, man. All right, you guys, go enter on the website, get that email in there, and we'll be announcing a winner here real soon. Take care, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.